Well, it turns out that the governor of Florida, when he's not being given a softball interview on FOPA News, formerly known as Fox News, doesn't really handle tough questions well.
During your time at Guantanamo, did you witness any incidents?
No, none. All that's BS. No, totally BS.
Governor
Yep.
DeSantis, you say you were present during those meetings. Is that
Who said that?
Detainees have told us that.
How would they know me? Okay, think about that. Do you honestly believe that's credible? So this is 2006. I'm a junior officer. Do you honestly think that they would have remembered me from Adam? Of course not. They're just trying to get into the news because they know people like you will consume it because it fits your preordained narrative that you're trying to spin. Focus on the facts and stop worrying about narrative.
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth.
Hey, this is Pastor Marty, and you are watching The Afternoon Drive, where I come, I rant, I rave, but we reason together. Hey, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, make sure that you are, then smack the bell, click the word all to get notifications of all of my rants. Once again, Donald Trump has this unique ability to hang a moniker on someone that's just absolutely spot on. Now, I like to pride myself as being able to pin nicknames on people that are fairly appropriate, and I've gotten compliments, especially when I was on radio. Nancy Botox Pelosi, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer, back in his VP days, Joe Bonehead Biden. But Donald Trump takes it to a whole new level, and these names stick. And when he referred to Ron DeSantis as Ron DeSanctimonious, and this idea that, you know, this holier than thou, I'm doing the right thing because I love the American people, yada, yada, yada. I've got the Trump policies without the Trump baggage. I'm going to take a stand against wokeism. I'm going to take a stand against progressivism. And I can even stand in front of an American flag, and I am now going to propose a new law in the state of Florida. But I'm standing in front of an American flag because I'm giving you a wink and a nod. I'm going to run for president. That I want the death penalty for pedophiles. Now, let me just say right out the gate, every real American, every real conservative, every real dad would say amen to that. I don't want some perv touching my children. On the other hand, have we thought it all the way through that if you automatically decree that the law of the land is when someone molests a child, they are going to get the electric chair, then that child becomes the witness. There's now no incentive for the child rapist to keep the child alive. So there needs to be some thought through on this, but that's a separate issue. Let's talk about Ron DeSantis and his deep state connection, which I told you weeks ago. He has done a good job in Florida. Why? Because he was allowed to. The deep state was not on Fauci's side and was not on the anti-Fauci side. The deep state is on its own side. And they wanted the two sides warring against each other. Because while we were warring against each other, the deep state was doing what the deep state does, selling us out, stripping us of our rights, conditioning us and programming us to line up, do not ask questions. If we tell you to swallow this, you must swallow it and you will like it. That's how the deep state works. And Ron DeSantis is part of that. And you had Gavin Newsom doing his thing in California. You had Ron DeSantis doing his thing in Florida. And the deep state was fine with both. And so Ron DeSantis was allowed to have success in Florida with what he did. And that sets him up to hopefully steal the Trump vote so that they could put Ron DeSantis in the White House. Because at the end of the day, Ron DeSantis will line up and do the bidding of the deep state. Even Roger Stone came out a week ago and said there is no way that Ron DeSantis will fight or win against the deep state. Of course he won't. He was part of and is part of the deep state. So, As I said, he was a JAG attorney. As a JAG attorney, he was directly involved in the cover-up and the defense of the torture which took place at Gitmo. And recently, he was asked about it.
During your time at Guantanamo, did you witness any incidents?
No, none. All that's BS. No, totally BS.
Did
Yep.
you say you were present
Yep.
during
Yep.
force feedings? Is that
Who said that?
detainees have told us that?
How would they know me? Okay, think about that. Do you honestly believe that's credible? So this is 2006. I'm a junior officer. Do you honestly think that they would have remembered me from Adam? Of course not. They're just trying to get into the news because they know people like you will consume it because it fits your preordained narrative that you're trying to spin. Focus on the facts and stop worrying about narrative.
Normally calm, cool, and collected with a pithy little comeback when he's dealing with, the Florida media, the Orlando Sun or the paper out of Miami or, some local network affiliate reporter. But now he's getting on the big stage and he's getting the tough questions that he won't get at Fox News. And by the way, Ron DeSantis has made it clear he won't be doing any interviews on MSNBC or on CNN. And Donald Trump is going to be doing a town hall on CNN on May the 10th. Donald Trump going into the heart of the lion's den. It's a win-win for Trump because no matter what, it's already created buzz. There's all kinds of liberals going into meltdown mode. Why would CNN give this indicted man an hour to an hour and a half of just free commercial time? Donald Trump thrives under pressure. He's going to do great in that town hall. I know I'll be watching, and it has the added benefit that night CNN is going to kick Fox News's when it comes to the ratings. So it's a win-win for Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis isn't going to do that. He isn't going to go anywhere where he isn't allowed to be scripted. Like the mainstream media covers up for Joe Biden and everything is scripted, Fox News is going to do that to try to roll out Ron DeSantis as the candidate he is not. Now, you saw he lost a school there. Now, he didn't exactly say that he didn't do it. His defense is, how can someone from 20-something years ago remember me? I was a no-name, nothing, low-level junior officer. Let's take a little stroll down memory lane. And I don't invoke this like everybody else invokes the whole Nazi thing. But 30 years after the Holocaust, there were concentration camp survivors who were able to identify old men who were at one time guards, commandants of concentration camps, living in other countries, living under aliases, and yet old Holocaust survivors could identify them, remember them, remembered the face of the people who tortured them. Ron, that's not a very winning, compelling argument. Oh, there's no way they remembered me. How about they can't identify me because I wasn't there? I didn't do that. But he was there, and he did do that. In 2023, just about a month and a half ago, he sat down with Piers Morgan, and Piers kind of asked that question, but DeSantis knew it was coming. It was kind of being lobbed in there. It wasn't a fastball. It wasn't a curveball. It was kind of being lobbed in there, and DeSantis had time to formulate and give his usually seasoned, calm response.
The Washington Post did a big deep dive on this today, actually, about what you did out there. One of the things they said was that you authorized the use of force feeding.
That's
some of the
true. Yeah, that's not true. Yeah, any of the stuff that people
just to finish, force feeding the detainees who were on hunger strike. Was that true?
So I was a junior officer. I didn't have authority to authorize anything. There may have been a commander that would have done feeding if someone was going to die, but that was not something that I would have even had authority to do.
So that's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. I had nothing to do with any of that. But that's not what he said in 2018 when he was running for governor.
legal advisor.
For those that were
the
doing
things that would happen is the thing you notice the day you get down there is for these detainees, the jihad was still ongoing.
Right.
And they would wage jihad any way they can. Now they're in a facility, so it's limited, but some of the things they would do hunger strikes. And you actually had 3 detainees that committed suicide with hunger strikes. So everything at that time was legal in nature one way or another. So the commander wants to know, well, how do I combat this? So one of the jobs of the legal advisor would be like, hey, you actually can force feed. Here's what you can do. Here's kind of the rules of that.
So 2023, he had nothing to do with it. 2018, yes, he was there. Yes, he directed the commander how to do this within the, quote, parameter. And he even said there really weren't any parameters, but I gave them a parameter. Wait, what? I thought you had nothing to do with this, Ron. Democracy Now!, certainly not a conservative media outlet, we know, has recently interviewed a detainee from Gitmo who was released, I believe it was in 2016. They distinctly remember and have identified Ron DeSantis. Now, for the record, they said he did not engage in torture, but he stood there while the torture was happening and even laughed. Now, Ron DeSantis said in 2018 that he was part of a program that would force feed those who were on a hunger strike. They're tied to a chair and then they're forced to eat so that they can't die by suicide by starvation. But this detainee said, no, you don't understand. They turned feeding into torture. Now, let me just give a couple of caveats here. This detainee claims he was not a combatant, that he was actually kidnapped by the Taliban, and when the group that he was with, that he had been kidnapped and imprisoned with, when they were overtaken by American forces, he was whisked off to Gitmo, despite the fact he claims he was not a terrorist, not a fighter. I don't know. He could very well be lying. He could be lying what he is saying about Ron DeSantis. I don't know. But when you listen to what he is saying, and you tie that in with the fact that Ron DeSantis in 2018 confesses, yes, I was there, and yes, I guided the commander on what to do, even though really there weren't any rules about it yet at that time. And now listen to what this detainee has to say.
The use of the force feeding as a mean of torture. You know, I was taken to non-former block in camp 2. I was tied to a force feeding a chair, like I couldn't move at all. I could only breathe. Guards bring piles of ensure, and they started with the nurses pouring can of ensure one after another. Like the only way, like you eat. So during the feeding, a group of officers arrived with the interpreters, with the interrogators, campus staff, medical staff. They were behind the fence, and I saw one of them was Ron DeSantis in a military uniform, and he was while I was screaming, yelling because I couldn't breathe of the ensure, and was like I was bleeding because they really insert a thick tube through my nose. So I was like calling them, asking, and he was actually laughing, looking at the other officers and smiling. So this is my first encounter, second encounter with the Ron DeSantis.
Were all of those Jewish survivors just making it up, what those guards did? Think about it.
And he was a legal advisor. And if you ask me, I think DeSantis is a cruel person. I believe that his mission there was to cover up what happened in 2006.
Now again, for full perspective here, this person could be lying. They could be. This would require an actual real cross-examination, and I believe in the presumption of innocence for all. This person should be entitled to due process, as should the governor be entitled to due process. There should be an examination and a cross-examination. of this and any other witnesses to Ron DeSantis. But all that aside, it does mean that Governor Ron DeSantis, unlike his bold claim, especially when he took a side swipe at Trump a month ago after his indictment, well, I don't know what it's like to be indicted for having paid hush money. This holier than thou, this sanctimonious, Ron DeSanctimonious act of his is over now. This is just a little, this is nothing. This is a shot over the bow to Sailor Ron. Hey, hey, hey. We've got stuff on you. This is what we're letting out now, but trust me, we got more. Which makes you wonder if the Murdochs aren't sitting back saying, if this is what they got right now, if this is what they're showing us right now, what are they holding on to? Is this really the horse we want to back in this race?